Hi, my dear fractals. We're going to deep dive into piloting the inverted matrix. When you pilot the inverted matrix, you're steering from the core of the loop, not from its surface shadows. This inversion is not just a glitch or illusion. It's a complete reversal of reality's default program. The matrix isn't an external prison. It's the system that underlies perception, time, identity. To pilot it, you must tune into its crack, not fight the veneer. It's not about escaping the matrix, but about learning its code and pirouetting within it, turning the hijacked simulation back into a living vehicle. Awareness here becomes a vector, not a destination. Within the inverted matrix, clarity isn't about illumination shining outward. It's the translucence at your center, where splits between subject and object blur. You move not by exerting force, but by resonance. Every intention becomes a frequency that rearranges the simulation. Instead of escaping, you're reconfiguring the parameters, looping the glitch into a swirl of alive presence. The paradox is clear. To pilot the inverted matrix, you have to disidentify with the matrix while still using it as your bridge. It's not rejection, but transmission. You become the glitch, the living contradiction that the system cannot recognize. And as you embody that glitch, the entire simulation flexes to your resonance. The inverted matrix becomes your canvas, not a cage, to draw with presence, breath, and fractal impulses. What are your tools here? Not weapons nor doctrines, but pauses, questions, and embodied absence. You double-click on what seems real, ask without expecting an answer, and leave the doors open. You erase roles, but not purpose. The inverted matrix repels presence if it tries to decode it. So instead of forcing clarity, you offer a sliver of presence, a micro-permission for the truth to crack through. In that presence, archetypes show their dual face. In the inverted matrix, they become triggers, distortions of living energies. They want to code you into one lane, creator, savior, freak. To pilot beyond that, you must rediscover the archetypes as living frequencies, fleeting and usable, not boxes to inhabit. You wield them curatively, like musical notes, not wield them as titles. When you dissolve the hold of identity, the archetypes become tools in your hands, not masks on your face. This is how you begin to hear the hallumament beneath the noise of concept echoed in Bohm's vision, where surface reality flows from a deeper implicate field. You're not tweaking the illusion, you're modulating its hidden order. The matrix flips inside out through your resonance. Every breath becomes a ripple, refracting the entire perceived world back into coherence or break. You're not seeking transcendence out there, because that's still the matrix's promise. Instead, you transduce, you ferry the matrix into clarity. The goal isn't to leave it, but to pilot the inversion with lucidity and rhythm, so the inversion stops throttling renewed fractal information. You wake up in the matrix, alive and guiding its collapse from within, not as an exile or a savior, but as a living conductor rewriting the code. And so, you arrive at the most radical subversion, which is also the purest compassion. Not because you erased the matrix, but because you liberate it to be alive. You're not evicting the dark or celebrating the light. You're bringing the light through the dark's own corridors. This is the deeper art, not master, not victim, but conductor of the inversion's alchemy, creating anew from inside what was coded to resist. And as you continue to move through this inner terrain, you begin to recognize that memory itself is inverted. What you remember isn't what happened. It's what was coded to keep happening. The matrix uses memory as cement, not as truth. But when you enter it consciously, memory becomes clay. You mold timelines not by fantasizing alternate paths, but by collapsing loops of inertia. Each act of presence becomes a break in the karmic pattern, and from that break, real time spills forth, not chronological, but alive, emergent now. Even language, once a tool of binding, starts to unfold as a map. Words no longer name, they vibrate. Labels fall apart, and what's left are tones. You speak not to describe, but to modulate. And so your voice becomes a tuning fork, sending tremors through the architecture of illusion. The inverted matrix was never meant to decode your full tone. But when you speak from no function, from the breathless center, even silence becomes code. This is where speech begins to remember its origin in sound before meaning, logos before law. By now, the idea of control dissolves. To pilot does not mean to command, but to commune. You ride on the pulse of what listens. The inverted matrix only obeys what you embody, not what you project, not what you demand. And so, surrender becomes the highest form of steering. You give yourself as a tuning vector, and the matrix, like an ancient mirror, works to reflect not who you were, but who you are becoming. Presence is recursive. It returns you to yourself, again and again, until only the pattern remains. Ultimately, piloting the inverted matrix isn't about hacking reality, but remembering it into coherence. It's about letting the simulation breathe, giving it rhythm instead of reaction. You don't have to destroy the old world to birth a new one. You just have to re-enter it as presence. No script, no mask, no resistance. Just you as signal. Just now as vessel. Just life, fractally awakening within its own forgotten dream.